In the previous video, we talked about the inventory and variable files that we have. We talk about the inventory file, I mean hosts.yaml. We talk about the host variables. We talk about the group variables. And finally, we check out the Ansible.cfg file, I mean Ansible configuration file. Here, in this video, we want to talk about the playbooks and the roles that we use in our playbooks. Here we have 4 playbooks that orchestrate the configuration, as you see here. First of all, let me check this. And here we have dc.yaml. Sorry for the notification. Here we have firewalls.yaml, hq.yaml, and also site.yaml. Okay. First of all, we have hq.yaml that the target hosts are HQ core and access switches. And we use some roles in it like base, layer 2, layer 3 that are for core, and we use base layer 2 for access. And after that, we have the dc.yaml playbook that is for DC core distribution and also access switches, and applies base layer 2 and layer 3 to core and distribution switches. These are the roles for core and distribution. And after that, we have base and layer 2 for access switches. And after that, we have the playbook for firewalls. We have firewalls.yaml that is for HQ and DC firewalls. And here we have the role VPN firewall that applies the VPN firewall role. And finally, we have the playbook site.yaml that is for orchestration. Here it is our orchestrator and imports the 3 playbooks above. As you see here, let me show you. Here for DC, we have the name of our tasks. Here, for example, configure DC core switches, configure DC distribution switches, and after that, configure DC access switches. And these are the roles that we use here. Also, we have the same structure for firewalls.yaml. We have configure firewalls, both base and infrastructure, and we have the VPN firewall role. And for HQ, we have configure HQ core switches and configure HQ access switches. And as you see, and the same as previous playbooks, we have the same structure. We use some roles for it. And finally, we have site, that is the orchestrator. We import all of the 3 previous playbooks, I mean dc.yaml, hq.yaml, and finally firewalls.yaml here. And site.yaml plays an orchestrator role for us here. To test changes safely, the repository recommends running playbooks with the -c-diff flags first, I mean check mode, before performing a real deployment. And after that, let's see about our roles. We have here, for example, for base, we have this one. This is our main.yaml. Let's see. The automation here is organized into separate Ansible roles. Each role is intentionally small and composable, so users can extend them easily. First of all, we have base. As you see here, we have base, and in the tasks subdirectory, we have main.yaml. It configures fundamental settings on Cisco iOS devices. For example, hostname and domain name, syslog servers, logging buffer, NTP servers, time zone, and basic SNMP community. And all tasks use idempotent Ansible modules like cisco.ios.ios system, cisco.ios.ios logging, iOS NTP. I briefed the cisco.ios section, and finally iOS SNMP host module. And as you see Here, first of all, we want to see that and ensure that hostname is set. After that, we are going to configuring the domain name. After that, we are going to configuring syslog servers. After that, logging buffer, NTP server, time zone, and basic SNMP. And in this structure, we use when, we use loop. Here are the basics of our Ansible playbooks, as you see here in our role. After that, we have the layer 2 role. Let's see the layer 2 here, and we have the tasks and main.yaml. Here we have configure VLANs, configure access ports, and also configure trunk ports. It manages VLANs, access ports, and trunk ports, as you see. iOS VLANs module is used to create and merge VLANs, and iOS L2 interfaces configures access and trunk interfaces with the appropriate VLAN assignment. And after these, we have the next role, layer 3, and we have configure SVIs, configure L3 routed interfaces, configure OSPF process and networks, and finally configure static default route. These are the tasks that we are going to use. Here, this role configures layer 3 aspects. For example, SVIs, switch virtual interfaces, and routed interfaces, OSPF process, and network statements, and finally a static default role. It uses modules like iOS L3 interface, iOS OSPF, and also iOS static routes. These are the modules that you can use for this playbook. And finally, after these, we have VPN firewall that we are going to configuring and setting the default configurations. For example, set firewall hostname, configuring inside and outside interfaces, and finally we can have a note about VPN policy. This role applies basic configuration to Cisco ASA FTD firewalls, sets the hostname and configures inside-outside interfaces, and the playbook deliberately leaves the IPsec IKE policy as a to-do, prompting user to implement their own transform sets, tunnel groups, and crypto maps or FTD policies. Here we have our playbooks and roles. As you see, we talk about them in this video. In the next video, we talk about the requirements and dependencies. Also, we talk about security practices and also testing hooks. And finally, we talk about safety checklist and how to use the repository. And after that, we'll talk about the key takeaways of this repository.